Hey, Astro Kids, and welcome back. This is your weekly horoscope for March 22nd through the 28th of 2021. So, coming into this week, the main focus will be the moon, but I also threw in, for those of you who wanted me to add in the extra three planets, that Mercury will be conjoining with Neptune. So, we'll see that aspect of Mercury and Neptune coming together. And this is an interesting week as there's a lot of moving pieces as far as purpose, getting things done, relaxing. So there's a lot of changing energy going on this week as we come into the moon's transit. And the moon will go through Ardra starting on the 22nd. So this is a nakshatra that falls in Gemini, represented by the teardrop and ruled by Rahu. This is all about science, experimentation. And so this becomes a great time for research, for experimenting, for working on projects, using your intellect towards your ideas, towards what you want to create. And of course, this is leading up to a full moon in Virgo, where the things that we've been working on, the things that we've been building up to, are coming to fruition. So, for those of you who have not seen this full moon in Virgo horoscope yet, feel free to check that out. I will leave a link above and down below in the description. But this becomes a great time to focus your energy onto the things that you want to discover, the things that you want to create, original ideas, science, research. This is a time to be curious, to be thinking, to be researching, to be planning during this first part of this week. As we move into the 23rd, the moon will move into Punarvasu Nakshatra, which falls from Gemini into Cancer. It is represented by the quiver and ruled by Jupiter. So this becomes about your spiritual growth, this quest to go back into source. And so this becomes a great day for those of you who are looking to meditate, to self reflect, to go within. This moment here is a moment of spiritual liberation, of finding that path back to spirit. As we come forward into the 24th of March, the moon will shift into Pushya Nakshatra, which falls in Cancer. It is symbolized by the cow's udder and ruled by Saturn. This is all about care, nurturing. So, in this nakshatra, what are the things in your life that need to be nurtured, that need to be cared for? So, this is not only for affection or for emotional care, but also for the things in your life that need care. Remember that this is controlled by Saturn, which is a planet of discipline. And so, even the things in your life that need that care and that detail to plan, to structure, to build, to have that level of discipline and routine, this is very important to focus on coming into this moon here. As we shift forward to the 25th of March, the moon will shift into Ashlesha, which is within Cancer. It is symbolized by the snake and ruled by Mercury. So this becomes a period of time where you may feel a little bit detachment. You may be wanting to connect more deeply, more intimately with those who you are close to coming into this moon. This is a great time for connection. As we move forward, on the 26th, the moon will shift into Maga, which falls in Leo. This is represented by the throne, and this is ruled by Ketu. So this becomes about taking up the mantle or the throne of your ancestors. What is your purpose? What is your calling? Taking that on, leading that, being in that purpose, in that dignity, holding that power of your family legacy becomes a huge part of this moon here. And so, for a lot of you, this is again a time that is focused on connection, focus on the people closest to you, but upholding those certain values, those certain traditions, those certain things that are part of your family, that is your purpose, your calling. This is K2, the ruler. Remember that K2 is connected to our past life karma. And so this is about the fulfillment of those karmas that have already been worked through, that have already been dealt with, bringing this back into reality. Now, as we shift forward towards the end of the week here, we will shift into the moon going into Purva Falguni here on the 27th. And so this is represented by the hammock. This falls within Leo and it is ruled by Venus. And so towards the end of the week here, after all of these things that we're working on, that we're working towards, that we're trying to discover, all of this desire for connection comes in a desire for relaxation, a desire to take a break, to refresh yourself, to refuel yourself. And so, for some of you, especially those of you who need that time alone to recharge, this becomes a great moon here to take that time to yourself, to relax, to take that break that you need. At the end of the week, we will shift into a Terra Falguni, which falls between Leo and Virgo. It's represented by the back legs of a bed and it is ruled by the sun. So this becomes all about your responsibility, your ambitions, your drive. So again, there's a lot of focus here around goals, ambition, the things that you're working towards. And of course, this is leading up to a full moon in Hasta. So again, if you have not seen that video, there is a link down below in the description. So let's go ahead and jump right into each of your zodiac signs to see how this will affect you coming into this week. Starting off here, for those of you with an Aries ascendant, the moon will start off in your third house. So this becomes a great time. Once again, we are here in the Ardra Nakshatra. Great time for research, for writing, for using your intellect to tap into certain skill sets, to get work done, to work towards a goal, to research new things, to use that curiosity to your advantage. So, this can be a great time for you to work on any sort of project involving writing, involving communication, publishing, anything along those lines coming into this week. From there, the moon will shift into your fourth house. And so the moon will be entering here into Punarvasu Nakshatra. And so again, this becomes a time about going back into source, especially as this is here in your fourth house. Taking that time to go inward, to connect inward in this week is a good refresher for those of you with an Aries ascendant. Moving forward, we have the moon that is entering into your fifth house. And so this is a great time here, coming off of that space of wanting to connect, to go deeper, especially as we're coming into the Pusha Nakshatra, into the Alesha Nakshatra. Here, the moon will shift into Maga. And so this becomes a great time of upholding a certain legacy, a certain value that you're aiming towards. What do you feel that your purpose and calling is? This becomes a huge focus coming into this week here for you. And lastly, we will end out the week with the moon shifting into Virgo, and this will take us into a full moon. Once again, for those of you with an Aries ascendant or Aries moon, if you have not checked out that full moon and Hasta video, make sure to check that out down below to see how this will affect you regarding the full moon. But as the moon shifts into a Terra Falguni and we start to move from Leo into Virgo, this is coming into your sixth house. And so this becomes a great time to focus on your responsibility, your duty, your routine, the things that bring structure into your life, the things that keep your life in order. This becomes a great time to focus on this, and especially as we're here in the spring season, if you're here in the US, great time for spring cleaning, great time for organizing, getting things together for those of you with an Aries moon or Aries ascendant. Now, for those of you with a Leo moon or Leo ascendant, we're starting off this week with the moon in your 11th house. And so this becomes a great time to work towards a goal. This becomes a great time to focus on your vision, on your dreams, on your future goals, doing the proper research, getting the facts together, making sure that you have everything in order to actually acquire this goal, this achievement that you have for yourself. So, this is a big time where you can really take advantage of this work towards your vision, towards your dreams coming into this week. Following that, the moon will move into your 12th house. And this is where we will shift into Cancer. And so, especially for those of you, as the moon is shifting here into Panarvasu, Pushya, and Aslesha, this really becomes a deep time of reflection, of going inward, especially here in your 12th house. This is a great time for you to meditate, to journal, to go for a walk, to do the things that are going to connect you back to source, that are going to get you more grounded, more so able to self reflect and go inward at this time. So, this really becomes a spiritual moment for a lot of you here with a Leo ascendant or Leo moon. Following that, the moon will shift into your first house as it comes into Maga. And so, this is really a time to hold a certain dignity within yourself. As this is represented by the throne, this really becomes a time of really standing in your skill set, standing in the knowledge that you've acquired, the things that you know. Remember that this nakshatra is controlled by Ketu. So the things that you've already accomplished in the previous life, using this to your advantage, holding on to the natural skills and abilities that you have and using this. Remember that from that first house that the moon will be aspecting over to your seventh house. So this really becomes a strong area for you to work on business, to work towards your efforts. If you are in a partnership, using the things that you know, using the things that you have already acquired and attained, the things that come naturally to you to really work as a team, to work towards a set goal. Following that, to end off the week here, the moon will shift into your second house. And again, if you are a Leo ascendant or Leo moon, you want to check out that video on the full moon in Hasta to see how this full moon will affect you here on the 29th here in your second house. But before that, the moon will be in Terra Falguni here in Virgo in your second house. This is a great time to work on your finances, to work on your security, making sure that everything is set and solid in your foundation, in your structure, keeping these things in order. This is a great time for work, for responsibility, a lot that you can bring in from focusing on the things that need to be worked through during this time with this moon here in your second house. For those of you with a Sagittarius ascendant or Sagittarius moon, we're starting off the week here with the moon in your seventh house. This is really a great time for you to share your different ideas with others, to collaborate, to team up. We have the intellect here of the moon in Gemini, and especially here in this Ardha Nakshatra, which is controlled by Rahu. All of these technical skills, all of this research and knowledge that you can use to your advantage. So, really teaming up with others, bouncing off different ideas, coming up with different solutions, coming up with different plans is a huge focus that you can benefit from coming into this week. Following that, the moon will shift into your eighth house. coming into Cancer as it's moving through Punarvasu, Pushya, and Aslesha. This becomes about farming a deeper bond and connection coming into this eighth house, and not just in relationships, but within yourself. A lot of shifts and changes that can happen here and needing to work through these deeper emotional areas. So, for a lot of you, this can be a huge time for growth and transformation to take place through this eighth house. This can also be a time where there is a huge focus on others relying on you as the moon is shifting through this house for you. Moving forward, the moon will shift into your ninth house as it enters into Leo. It moves into Maga, represented by the throne. This is really your time for self mastery. For those of you who are studying, who are learning, this is a time for you to really apply yourself, to really ask those questions, to really do the work to acquire the knowledge that can help you towards your goals. This can be a great time for connecting with teachers. This can be a great time for research, a great time for writing, for speaking, for publishing coming into this week. Following that, we will end out the week as the moon shifts into your 10th house of Virgo here at the end as it moves into a Terra Falguni. And so this really becomes about your duty, your responsibility. And for many of you coming towards the end of the week, you will have certain set responsibilities and goals that need to be taken advantage of coming into this week. And this will lead us into the full moon in Hasta. So if you have not seen the video on the full moon in the Hasta Nakshatra, make sure to check that out. There is a link below in the description. So let's go ahead and move forward here to the earth signs. For those of you with a Taurus moon or Taurus ascendant, we're starting off this week with the moon in your second house. This becomes a big time for those of you where you can see some uncertainties and some shifts taking place. This is really a time where you want to make sure that you are researching, paying attention to all of the details. Some things in your security and your finances can shift all of a sudden with the fluctuating factor of this moon, especially as it is here in Gemini in a Rahu ruled nakshatra. So you can see some unexpected things happening coming into this week, making sure that you are looking at all the fine print, looking at all the details is important, not only in your own finances, but for those of you even who are sharing finances, who have joint finances, making sure that you're looking at all these things. Remember that from that second house, the moon is aspecting over to your eighth house of shared resources. From there, the moon will shift into your third house as it comes into Cancer. And it will spend a lot of time here as it will go through the three nakshatras of Parnavasu, Pushya, and Alesha. And this becomes a huge time of forming deeper connections coming into this week. Really great moment for you as this is opposing Jupiter that sits in your ninth house. This is a great time to connect deeper with those who can give you some wisdom, some knowledge coming into this week. And so you can find yourself connecting more with teachers, with mentors, to those closest to you. You can find yourself looking for some advice, looking for some wisdom, looking for some connection that can bring some value into your life. Moving forward from there, the moon will shift into your fourth house as it comes into Leo. And so it will move into Maga, represented by the throne. This becomes a huge time where many of you can feel deeply connected to your family line, as this is the fourth house of home and family. A lot of you strongly connected to your ancestral line and the duties, the responsibilities, the karmas that are connected to that. And so this really becomes a great time for liberation through connecting back to the home, finding that spiritual connection through the home, as this is a Ketu ruled nakshatra. Following that, the moon will shift into your fifth house. This will end out the week before we jump into the full moon here on the 29th. So if you have not checked out that video on the full moon in the Hasta Nakshatra taking place on the 29th of March, make sure to check that out. There's a link down below in the description. But as the moon comes into your fifth house here in this Uttara Falguni Nakshatra, this really becomes about nurturing your ambitions, your goals, the things that you would like to achieve coming into this week. And so this is a huge focus, especially as Venus is sitting up in your 11th house. A lot that you can gain and acquire. And remember that we have this combust Venus, but it's also in an exaltation as it is here in Pisces. So this really becomes a point of letting go of anything that is stopping you from achieving these goals, these ambitions that you have for yourself. Now, for those of you who have a Virgo moon or Virgo ascendant, we're starting off the week with the moon back in your 10th house. So, this is a time of really focusing in on your goals, focusing in on your career, on the things that you want to achieve and accomplish. What is the reputation that you're building for yourself? And using your skill sets, using your knowledge to reach this position, to uphold this position coming into this week. The moon will be very strong in this position for those of you with a Virgo moon or Virgo ascendant. From there, the moon will shift into your 11th house. And so, as the moon is going through Cancer and it's moving through Panarvasu, Pushya, and Aslesha, this really becomes about your deepest desires. What are the things that are connected to your highest, greatest good, towards your purpose, your destiny, your calling in life? This is a big one for those of you with a Virgo moon or Virgo ascendant, focusing on the things that are best for you. And of course, this is leading up to a full moon where a lot of you will be clearing out unnecessary things that no longer serve you. So, big theme as we are pushing ahead into this week. Following that, the moon will shift into your 12th house in Leo in this Magha Nakshatra, represented by the throne. This is a time of finding that peace, that connection. For a lot of you, finding this connection towards your divine calling and purpose, towards the things that can bring you wealth, the things that can bring you success. And remember that this is all tied and connected to the ancestors, as this is ruled by K2. So, this is a great time for those of you with a Virgo moon or Virgo ascendant to really focus in on those areas in which you really need to grow. You need to create the wealth, the success, a name. Some of you even focusing on a name for your family line, for your ancestral line, as this is K2 controlling this moon. So, huge time and pulling this inspiration, pulling these ideas out into your work, as this is opposing your sixth house. So, this is a big opportunity to focus in on those things that need to be accomplished, that need to be worked through at this time. Following that, to end out the week, the moon will move into your first house before it enters into a full moon in the Hasta Nakshatra. But before we get there, the moon will start off here on the 28th in Uttara Falguni. And so this really becomes about focusing on your responsibilities, on your goals, on the things that are true to who you are and your purpose, your calling. This is a nakshatra that is controlled by the sun. So, what is it that you are destined to do? What is your soul's calling? What is your purpose? What is your dignity coming into this week here? And this, of course, is opposing a combust Venus in exaltation back in your seventh house. And so this really becomes about letting go of those connections, those ties that no longer serve you, those connections of those people who are doubting you, who are stopping you from achieving your success, achieving your mission. This is a huge focus for those of you with a Virgo moon or Virgo ascendant. Now, for those of you with a Capricorn moon or Capricorn ascendant, the moon will be starting out here for those of you coming into this week in your sixth house. So, this is a huge time to focus on your daily responsibilities, on your work life, on those areas that require details, that require the knowledge, the skills. This is a Gemini ruled moon, and this is within the Ardra Nakshatra, which is Rahu controlled. Remember that Rahu is all about the future, technology. It's a very cunning planet. And so this is time to apply your skills, to apply your knowledge that you have coming into this week. Moving forward here, the moon will shift into your seventh house, where this becomes a great time to form deeper connections, especially as the moon will be shifting through these three nakshatras controlled by Cancer. And so this is all about the deeper divine connection. How can you go deeper into your connections? And this is opposing Jupiter in your first house. And so for a lot of you, you are trying to find this divine connection. You're trying to connect on a level where you are finding this purpose, this calling, this mission centered around your relationships. And so this can even be considered towards a business partnership. What is the vision? How does this partnership support the vision coming into this week? Following that, the moon will shift into your eighth house as it comes into Leo, moving into this Magha Nakshatra. And so this becomes an interesting time as the moon is shifting back into your eighth house in a K2 controlled nakshatra. K2 is the original ruler of the eighth house. And so this becomes a great time for deep inner work through working through those areas that require deeper change and growth. And so, for a lot of you, you can go through very deep transformations coming into this week where you can find yourself connecting more inward, connecting more towards a spiritual calling, towards a spiritual purpose that is more in line with who you are. Also, you can find yourself connecting inward towards some karma connected to ancestors, because once again, this is controlled by K2. Moving forward, the moon will end up this week in your ninth house in Virgo. And this is before we will shift into a full moon in the Hasta Nakshatra. So before we get to that full moon, the moon will sit here in Uttara Falguni. This is a sun controlled nakshatra. And so this becomes a great time of listening towards your elders, towards your teachers, towards your masters at this time, taking the wisdom, the knowledge, and appreciating the guidance and authority that is there. So this becomes a huge moment of respecting your authority, respecting respecting those who are there to teach, to guide you. A lot that you can take away from your teachers at this point. And of course, this is a moon that is in an opposition with a combust Venus that is now in its exaltation of Pisces. So this is a huge moment of bringing in a lot of spiritual wisdom, a lot of mystical knowledge and understanding, a lot of philosophy that you can acquire from your teachers or from anything that is motivating, inspiring you, getting this guidance coming towards the end of the week. And of course, that will take us into the full moon in the Hasta Nakshatra. So if you have not checked out that video on the full moon in Hasta, make sure to check that out. There is a link down below in the description to see how this full moon will affect you. Let's go ahead and shift here into the air signs. So starting off here, for those of you with a Gemini moon or Gemini ascendant, we're starting off the week with the moon in your first house. And so this becomes a week where a lot of you are focused on research, on knowledge, on information. There's a high level of curiosity coming into this week. And you can find yourself changing opinions, being curious about learning different points of views, seeing from different perspectives. And so this week, this moon is taking full advantage of your Gemini qualities there in the first house, where this can be a very scientific and intellectual week for you. Researching, planning, writing, really pulling together knowledge and information. And this is something that many of you will want to share with others. Because remember, from the first house, the moon will aspect over to your seventh house of partnership. And so this can be a great week where you feel inspired to share your ideas, to share your vision, to share your plans with your partner. Following this, the moon will shift into your second house as it moves into Cancer. So, big week for connection. Some of you may feel very close to your family ties and tradition coming into this week. As the moon is shifting here in Cancer, you may feel deeply attached to your family upbringing and to the traditions, the values that you have gained through your family. This can also be a big week where you feel very much concerned about your wealth, your finances, your security, and you can see some changes, some fluctuations that can happen there. So, making sure that you're focused heavily on the details, focus on reading the fine print, making sure that everything is well sorted out. From there, the moon will shift into your third house as it comes into Leo in this Maga Nakshatra. And so this becomes a big time of really relaxed social situations. A lot of you, again, are going to have a huge focus on communication where you may feel more social, more friendly, more relaxed at this point. You may find yourself wanting to connect with others. And so this can be a big social week for those of you with a Gemini moon or Gemini ascendant. From there, the moon will shift into your fourth house, where it will end up in Virgo. And so this will take us into the full moon in Hasta on the 29th. But before that, the moon will shift into a Terra Falguni, where it will end up in Virgo here, which is represented by the back legs of a bed. So this is your foundation, especially sitting here in the fourth house. Big time to focus on your home life, your security, your foundation that you're building for yourself. Making sure that you are fully nurtured, that you are nurturing the things in your life that need that stability, that need that foundation. This becomes a huge focus, and you may feel more called towards your family, towards taking care of your family, towards providing for your family, towards supporting family members at this time. Moving forward, for those of you with a Libra moon or Libra ascendant, this is the moon starting off in your ninth house. And so this is the start of the week here where a lot of you can gain a lot of wisdom and higher insight from your teachers, from your father, from your guides, from your intuition, especially as this is a moon opposing Jupiter. A lot of you are going to be very technical, very curious about getting deeper insight, deeper wisdom starting off this week. And this can come true with the moon opposing Jupiter in your third house. A lot of you can find a lot of true information that you're seeking from teachers, from masters, from guides coming into this week. Moving forward from there, the moon will shift into your 10th house. And so the moon will come here into Cancer, where you can feel more concerned about caring for others, about providing for others. And a lot of you with Cancer controlling your 10th house are working in a field that involves helping others, supporting others. And so this could be something that requires a lot of your attention coming into this week. You can find yourself ending up in a lot of changes, a lot of fluctuations that require your attention towards working towards helping others, providing for others coming into this week here. Moving forward, the moon will shift into your 11th house in Leo. So this becomes a great time for you to shine. A lot of you could find yourselves moving up the ladder or getting a lot of attention for your efforts towards your goals, towards your accomplishments coming towards the end of this week. Following that, the moon will end up in your 12th house right before we jump into this full moon in the Hasta Nakshatra. So if you have not checked out that video yet on the full moon in Hasta, feel free to check that out. That is down below in the description. But as the moon stops here in the Uttara Falguni Nakshatra, this becomes all about your purpose, your responsibility, making sure that everything is secure and well taken care of. And remember that this moon is going to be aspecting over to a combust Venus in your sixth house. So making sure that your health is in check, making sure that everything is well taken care of, all of your needs, all of the things that bring you peace, security, as this is Venus and the sun in a moon opposition ruled by the sun. Huge focus on your responsibilities and the tasks that need to get done to ensure that everything is in order as it should be. Moving ahead here, for those of you with an Aquarius moon or Aquarius ascendant, we're starting off the week here with the moon in your fifth house. And so this is a great time for you to work towards any sort of projects and goals. This moon gives you the ability to really tap into that knowledge, into the research that you need to work towards these goals, these achievements that you have coming into this week. Huge focus as the moon is aspecting over to your 11th house. From there, the moon will shift into your 12th house. I'm sorry, the moon will shift into your sixth house, where this is, again, focus on your work, focus on your projects, your goals, your tasks that you want to get done. A lot of you are going to be very emotional. You're going to put a lot of passion and intention into the things that you want to get done coming into this week, and this is a great time to use this. This is also a great time for you to meditate, to go inward, especially as these nakshatras that are controlled by Cancer are very spiritual. They are very much about going inward, finding your purpose, finding your direction, going back to source. And so this becomes a huge moment here where a lot of you will need to reflect, will need to go inward, especially with this moon as it is facing over to your 12th house. This is a huge moment where you can really go inward and reflect. Following that, the moon will shift into your seventh house as it ends up in Leo here in this Maga Nakshatra. And so, for a lot of you, you may find yourself more focused on others, on what you can do for others at this time. This is a huge moment of your purpose, your destiny surrounded around connections with other people. As many of you here, again, you are an Aquarius ascendant. Focus on others, focus on humanity. This becomes a huge factor as the moon is coming in here, where a lot of you can be very much mentally and emotionally focused inward on your responsibility, on your purpose that is centered around other people. And this is strongly coming from past life knowledge, past life skill, as this is a moon that is ruled by Ketu. Ending it off here, the moon will end up in your eighth house of Virgo, and this will end up in Uttara Falguni before we shift into this full moon in the Hasta Nakshatra. So if you have not checked out that full moon video on the Hasta Nakshatra coming up here on the 29th, make sure to check that out to see how this will affect you. But here on the 28th, we are going to end up in the Uttara Falguni Nakshatra. And so this really becomes a huge time of focusing on your responsibilities, especially as this is a moon that is sitting here in the eighth house of crisis, of sudden ups and downs, making sure that everything is secure, planning for any sort of sudden shifts that can take place anything that can throw you off balance, making sure that you have those cautionary things in order in your life. And of course, this is aspecting over to a combust Venus in its exaltation of Pisces. And so, this especially is surrounding your wealth, your security, making sure that everything is in check to end off the week here. Lastly, let's take a look at the water signs for this week of March 22nd through the 28th. So, starting off here, for those of you with a Cancer ascendant, this moon will start off in your 12th house. Big moment of self reflection. And a lot of you, big moment of pulling an inspiration and deeper knowledge, deeper wisdom, deeper insight. This can be a great moment where you put to use your inspiration, your sudden burst of knowledge and insight into your work life. You can get very great ideas coming into this week, as this is a moon in the Ardra Nakshatra, which is controlled by Rahu. Very inventive, very futuristic, where a lot of you can really come up with some great breakthroughs and some great insight that you can pour into your work life as the moon is facing over to your sixth house. You also want to make sure that you are keeping your health in check, paying attention to the little details and the things that need to be taken care of becomes a huge part of this week as the moon has a fluctuating factor. From there, the moon will shift into your first house as it will move through these three nakshatras of Parnavasu, Pushya, and Ashlesha coming into this week. So this is a great time for you for deeper connection, for going inward, for really connecting in with yourself, as this is your first house. Huge moment where you can pull through a lot of deeper insight and wisdom, especially as Jupiter is looking at your first house from the seventh house. A lot of insight that can also come in through other people, where your connections, your conversations can trigger this inward reflection coming into this week. Following that, the moon will move forward into your second house. This can be a fluctuating factor. You want to make sure that your security is in check. But with this being in the Magha Nakshatra, this becomes a great time to bring in wealth and security. This becomes a great time for status, but you want to be careful as we come to the end of the moon as it moves into Purva Falguni, as we're moving into the 27th of March. It comes into a more relaxing and luxurious nakshatra where some of you could feel the impulse to spend, to splurge coming into this week. So, wanting to be careful there with your wealth and finances. Moving forward, we end up with the moon in Virgo here in your third house. And so we are going to have a full moon here in your third house on the 29th. If you have not checked out that video on the full moon in Hasta, there is a link down below in the description. But before that, the moon will sit here in the Uttara Falguni Nakshatra. This really becomes a time about focusing on your work, focusing on your responsibilities, your duties. Remember that the third house is not just communication, it's also your skill sets, it's also your courage to go after the things that you want, to make deals, to get things done. This is a time for a lot of you to be more productive as we're coming into this moon here in your third house, really using your skills, using your knowledge, using what you have to really come up with some results, especially as this is in opposition to Venus in a combustion in its exaltation of Pisces there in your ninth house. A lot that you can work towards as far as publishing, writing, communication, any sort of skills that you put to use coming into this week. For those of you with a Scorpio ascendant or Scorpio moon, we're starting off this week here with the moon in your eighth house. Very intense to start off the week. A lot of you can find yourself in deep isolation, researching, gathering information, A lot of you may feel more drawn to the occult, drawn to mystical knowledge coming into this week. This can also be a time where you're reflecting deeper, you're gathering new information on some changes, some shifts that are happening in your life, and lots of changes for those of you with a Scorpio ascendant or Scorpio moon with K2 there in your first house. Following that, the moon will shift into your ninth house, where it will enter into Cancer. This becomes a great time to connect deeper with your teachers, deeper with your source of wisdom and insight. And so, again, a lot of deeper knowledge that you can attain during this week. From there, the moon will shift into your 10th house, where you may see some shifts in your actual work and routine. There can be some fluctuation here where you are moving up towards a new position, a new focus, a new set of values in your actual work life. So this becomes interesting as some of you can see some shifts and changes, and for a lot of you, really moving, working up to something big coming towards the end of this week with a full moon in your 11th house. But before we get to that full moon, we will end up with the moon in a Terra Falguni in your 11th house. And so this really becomes about working towards your higher goals and ambitions, working towards the things that you want to see come true, and really setting the framework for this, setting the backbone for the things that you want to attain, especially as this is in an opposition over to a combust Venus in its exaltation of Pisces. A lot of good results that can come through here. Venus is a bit of a difficult planet for those of you, but in its exaltation, it is saved here by this sun also that is your 10th house ruler. A lot of you, big focus on some sort of large outcome coming towards the end of the week here. And if you have not checked out that full moon video in the Hasta Nakshatra, make sure to check that out to see how this full moon in your 11th house will also play out for you. For those of you with a Pisces moon or Pisces ascendant, we are starting off the week here with the moon in your fourth house. This is a moment of going inward, of tapping more inward. And for a lot of you, you can find yourself researching from home, gathering knowledge inward, self reflecting, gaining a lot of insight from within coming into this week. From there, the moon will shift into your fifth house, where it will oppose Jupiter over from your 11th house. Big moment of focusing on your goals, on your vision. With Jupiter there in your 11th house, a lot of you have big goals and ambitions that you are trying to fulfill. This moon offering the support for that, offering the creativity, offering the deeper insight in this week here. From there, the moon will shift forward into your sixth house. This is a moment here where you want to focus on your work, especially as this is a moon in the Magha Nakshatra, and following that coming into the Purva Falguni Nakshatra. Now, starting off here, a lot of you are going to feel your purpose, your destiny, your calling, moving towards that, working towards that. But as we get closer to this Purva Falguni Nakshatra coming in on the 27th, a lot of you may feel more relaxed, more lazy, more luxurious. This can be a time where you want to make sure that you're sticking to your goals, sticking to your efforts, especially as this is here in your sixth house of your work and responsibilities. Ending off this week here, we have the moon ending up in your seventh house of partnership. And this is where we will see the full moon in Hasta. If you have not checked out that video on the full moon, there is a link down below in the description so that you can see how this will play out for you. But before we get to that full moon, the moon will end up in a Terra Falguni here in your seventh house. Big moment of focusing on your work, on your responsibilities. Remember that the seventh house is not just about partnership, it is also about business. And so this is a huge time of focusing on your work life all this week, using the deeper insight, using the knowledge that you have to work towards your goals, especially with a combust Venus in your first house. This is really a huge time for you to stay motivated, to stay focused on your goals. Venus is not a good planet for those of you with a Pisces moon or Pisces ascendant. So, really hanging in there, making sure that you are not being distracted, that you're not being pulled on by these desires, but focusing on the actual work and the goals that you want to see through. So that was your weekly horoscope for March 22nd through the 28th of 2021 for all zodiac signs. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like as well as a comment. If you are new to this channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button along with the notification bell. If you would like to learn more about Vedic astrology, there is a course, and the link for all of that is down below in the description. You can find that on Facebook or on Patreon, and I will keep you all updated when it becomes available on Udemy. If you have any additional questions, anything that you'd like to add, anything that you'd like me to bring up regarding Vedic astrology in a future video, feel free to let me know and I will bring that up for you. I hope you all have a great day, and I want to thank you all so much for joining. I will see you in the next video.